Okay, let's get some more perspective on the story now with Laura Blumenfeld, Senior Fellow at the Philip Merrill Center for Strategic Studies at Johns Hopkins, and also former State Department Senior Policy Advisor on the Israeli-Palestinian negotiating team. Laura, great to have you back on BBC News. How high do you think the risk is right now of this conflict, the Israel-Gaza war, now spreading into the region?
Well, I think it's a fascinating report by your diplomatic correspondent. What you're watching is Middle East math, and it goes all the way back to an eye for an eye in the Bible, right? What is the calibration of revenge? How much revenge is enough? I think what the United States is saying, certainly to Israel, if you respond to Iran's response, make sure that it's proportionate. Right. The Iranians are very precise. I've actually traveled to Qum, which is the Shiite center for learning in Iran. And I sat down with some Ayatollahs and talked to them about revenge and retaliation. And there are very specific guidelines. It's one grave opposite one grave. And if you try to retaliate, I even asked them, what if a Palestinian shot a Jew? And they said, under certain circumstances, the Jew could shoot back, but not if he injured him 1 millimeter more, because then the retaliation would have to go back and forth and back and forth. And so in a very sophisticated way, through the moderate Arab states in the region, the United States is trying to de-escalate rather than, have things lead to the escalation we've been fearing all along.
That's really interesting, Laura. So what do you think the considerations are right now on the Iranian end as they're thinking about what targets and perhaps what retaliation is appropriate?
Well, again, with this kind of balance idea, soil for soil, they saw it as an attack on their soil because it was a diplomatic mission. So I would imagine that Israeli missions, in Europe, a potential soft target, South America, Southeast Asia are certainly on high alert. But I think that they might want to do their payback, dole it out in small bills rather than something that would create an escalation. Because the more that they push the United States and Israel together, they're undermining their own mission, right, which is to back up Hamas. We were witnessing scenes of, near breakup between the United States and Israel. And now there's this makeup scene you saw today with the footage of General Kurilla hugging Herzi Halevi, the Israeli Ramatkal, head of chairman of the Joint Chiefs in Israel. That's the last thing that they want to do, is push the United States back into the arms of Israel. This is the axis of resistance, Iran, and they're going to take the path of least resistance, which is letting Israel continue its disastrous PR, campaign and sort of terrible kind of humanitarian crisis in Israel. That seems to have been doing the job for them.
That's what I wanted to ask you next. I mean, how does all of this impact Israel's war in Gaza?
Well, all along, Israel's been saying the real enemy is Iran. So in a way, they're ready for this showdown. This is the showdown they've been preparing for over a decade. So I think that they're okay with this slight escalation. After October 7th, they kind of been staggering around, and they can restore some of their swagger here, right? They took a preemptive strike. This was on their terms. They're finally, seizing the pen and writing the script. They're now creating a situation where Iran might walk back into their trap rather than the other way around. So in a strange kind of way, this could all end up with a de-escalation. It's like one of those old-fashioned shootouts where you have a duel, right? Each gentleman gets one shot and then you call it even.
Fascinating to think about that. What about the diplomatic efforts here? We just saw that Secretary of State Blinken held another call with his Jordanian counterpart. What can all of this do to lower the temperature in the region?
Well, I think that the Arab states, the moderate Arab states, are our greatest allies, meaning the United States. They're all for regional integration, stability. And I think Secretary Blinken has been very good at calling this a kind of, a referendum on the Abraham Accords, building on that momentum toward what everybody's looking for, which is a more stable and prosperous Middle East. I think there's economic incentives. So far, we've avoided Gazanomics, the kind of oil price spike. But today we saw the Dow was spooked. I think it dropped 500 points by this potential retaliation. So Blinken's been holding it together. Amazing.
And Laura, one more question. If there are retaliatory strikes in a big fashion from Iran, where would that leave with the U.S.? What kind of response could we see from the U.S.?
Well, it's interesting. It depends on Israel's counter response. I think that the United States is committed. They're fully backing Israel. All along now, they've been saying, they've been speaking softly, carry big aircraft carrier. And I think that they're hoping that deterrence will do the job. I don't believe that there'll be a major strike on Israeli soil. I think that the stakes are too high, and the Iranians just kind of want to play it safe. That's been their path until now.
Laura, thank you so much for your analysis tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.